Now that hurt. Are any of my sounds going to work ever again? I can hear them, but they're not going out to the stream. I mean, the pictures are showing up for them, but no. Take them all back off the channel, please. Dun. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and switch over. Where am I? There I am. Again, I don't know why my stuff isn't working, but I'm not at all surprised. I've kind of given up on most of my sound alerts working, even though I have everything set up exactly how they say it should be. But if you haven't seen the memos, tonight is the last story I have of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes stories. And I may do something after the story is finished. I might have picked up something to throw in the theater. So hopefully we can watch that too. I'll go ahead and introduce it when we get to it, but I think it's appropriate that I found it, especially considering how many weeks of Sherlock Holmes we've done. And there's a wild rapidash in chat if anyone wishes to catch it. And I can spell. It'd be cool if I catch it with that one, because that means it'll have a better chance of being a shiny. I do like shiny Pokemon. A shiny rapidash would be cool. But as I said, last week for Sherlock Holmes. I'm probably going to go ahead and go into the rivals of Sherlock Holmes next week. I'll just have to change the title around, but all the mysteries and everything else were written in the same era that the Sherlock Holmes stories were written. So, in fact, most of them were written in the same magazine, The Strand. So it'll be interesting to get into those. I guess it'll be a new playlist too, since I don't want to mix everything up. But I'll go ahead and have those marked, titled by author and by the story name, or at least main character and story name when I get the edits done. But yeah. So much Sherlock Holmes. And for those who really haven't been keeping track of Sherlock Holmes all that much, that is 54 stories and 4 books. Why is Dusk's not showing up? That's not good. This is awkward. Okay. Hey, Taka. Breath on first. And hey, Matsu. Welcome in. I was checking on another friend's stream and it worried me that it was gone. So, but yes, we are doing his last bow tonight. And we are actually going to watch a movie afterwards. If I manage to stay awake that long. yeah, thanks for coming in. I didn't get the Rapidash. Oh well. Let me go ahead and get over to the study. Yes, it is the last night for Sherlock Holmes. And I mentioned it earlier. I do have the 2 volumes of Rivals of Sherlock Holmes that I'll probably get into next week. That I actually looked up and got on Matsu's suggestion. Of course, I got them through Throne Books. No, not Throne Books. Thrift Books. I used my link to get them. So it'll be interesting to get into those. I'm kind of definitely going to have interesting time reading the contemporaries of Sherlock Holmes, since I don't really have any preconceived voices for them. But since it is already after 9:10, I should probably get into the story. Though, my sound alerts still aren't working. I'm not sure why. I've already turned them back off. I tested them during the starting screen, so... So, his last bow. An epilogue of Sherlock Holmes. It was 9 o'clock at night upon the 2nd of August, the most terrible August in the history of the world. One might have thought already that God's curse hung heavy over a degenerate world, for there was an awesome hush and a feeling of vague expectancy in the sultry and stagnant air. The sun had long set, but one blood-red gash was like an open wound, lay low in the distant west. Above, the stars were shining brightly, and below, the lights of the shipping glimmering in the bay. The 2 famous Germans stood beside the stone parapet of the garden walk, with a long, low, heavily gobbled house behind them, and they looked down upon the broad sweep of the beach at the foot of the great chalk cliff on which von Bork, with some wandering eagle, had perched himself 4 years before. They stood with their heads close together, talking in a low, confidential tones. From below, the 2 glowing ends of their cigars might have been smoldering eyes of some malignant fiend looking down from the darkness. A remarkable man, this Van Bork. A man who could hardly be matched among all the devoted agents of the Kaiser. It was his talents which had first recommended him for the English mission, the most important mission of all, but since he had taken it over, those talents had become more and more manifest to the half-dozen people in the world who were really in touch with the truth. One of these was his present companion, Baron von Herling, the chief secretary of his legation, whose huge 100-horsepower Benz car was blocking the country lane as it waited to waft its owner back to London. As far as I can judge the trend of events, you will probably be back in Berlin within a week, the secretary was saying. When you get there, my dear von Bork, I think you will be surprised at the welcome you will receive. I happen to know what is thought in the highest quarters of your work in this country. He was a huge man, the secretary, deep, broad, and tall, with a slow, heavy fashion of speech which has been the main asset of his political career. Von Bork laughed. They're not very hard to deceive, he remarked. A more docile, simple folk could not be imagined. I don't know about that, said the other thoughtfully. They have strange limits, and one must learn to observe them. It is that surface simplicity of theirs which makes a trap for the stranger. One's first impression is that they are entirely soft. Then one comes suddenly upon something very hard, and you know that you have reached the limit, and must adapt yourself to the fact. They have, for example, their insular conventions which simply must be observed. Meaning good form and that sort of thing, Von Bork sighed, as one who had suffered much. Meaning British prejudice in all its queer manifestations. As an example, I may quote one of our own worst blunders. I can afford to talk of my blunders, for you know my work well enough to be aware of my successes. It was on my first arrival. I was invited to a weekend gathering at a country house of a cabinet minister. The conversation was amazingly indiscreet. Van Bork nodded. "I've been there," he said dryly. "Exactly. Well, I naturally sent a resume of the information to Berlin. Unfortunately, our good Chancellor is a little heavy-handed in these matters, and he transmitted a remark which showed that he is aware of what has been said. This, of course, took the trail straight to me. You've no idea the harm that it did me. There was nothing soft about our British host on that occasion, I assure you. I was 12 years living it down, and now you, with this sporting pose of yours." "Oh, no, don't call it a pose. A pose is an artificial thing. This is quite natural. I'm a born sportsman, and I enjoy it." "Well, that makes it more effective. You yacht against them. You hunt with them. You play polo. You match them in every game. Your four-in-hand takes a prize at the Olympia. I have even heard that you go to the length of boxing with the young officers. What is the result? Nobody takes you seriously. You are a good old sport, a quite decent fellow for a German. Hard drinking, nightclub, knockabout town, devil-may-care young fellow. All the time this quiet country house of yours is the center of half the mischief in England, and the sporting squire, the most astute Secret Service man in Europe. Genius, my dear Von Bork, genius." "You flatter me, Baron, but certainly I may claim that my 4 years in this country have not been unproductive. I have never shown you that little store. Would you mind stepping in for a moment?" The door of the study opened straight on the terrace. Von Bork pushed it back, and, leading the way, he clicked a switch of an electric light. He then closed the door behind the bulky form which followed him. He carefully adjusted the heavy curtain over the latticed window. Only when these precautions had been taken and tested did he turn his sunburned aquiline face to his guest. "Some of my papers have gone," said he. "When my wife and my household left yesterday for Flushing, they took the less important with them. I must, of course, claim the protection of the embassy for the others. Your name has already been filed as one of the personal suite. There will be no difficulties for you or your baggage. Of course, it is just possible that we may have not to go with you. England may leave France to her fate. We are sure that there is no binding treaty between them." "And Belgium, too?" "Yes, and Belgium, too." Von Bork shook his head. "I can't see how that could be. There's a definite treaty there. She could never recover from such a humiliation." "She would at least have peace for the moment. But her honor—" "Tut, my dear sir, we live in an equatorian age. Honor is a medieval conception. Besides, England is not ready. It is an inconceivable thing, and even our special war tax of 50 million, which one would think made our purpose as clear as if we had advertised it on the front page of the Times, has not roused these people from their slumbers." Here and there one hears a question. It is my business to find an answer. Here and there is also an irritation. It is my business to soothe it. But I can assure you that so far as the essentials go, the storage of munitions, the preparation for submarine attack, the arrangements for making high explosives, nothing is prepared. How then can England come in, especially when we have stirred her up with such a devil's brew of Irish civil war, window-breaking furies, and God knows what to keep her thoughts at home? She must think of her future. Ah, that is another matter. I fancy that in the future we have our very own definite plans about England, and that your information will be very vital to us. It is today or tomorrow with Mr. John Bull. If he prefers today, we are perfectly ready. If it is tomorrow, we shall be more ready still. I should think they would be wiser to fight the Allies than without them. But that is their own affair. This week is their week of destiny, but you are speaking of your papers. He sat in an armchair with the light shining upon his broad, bald head, while he puffed sedately at his cigar. The oak-paneled, book-lined room had a curtain hung in the further corner. When this was drawn, it disclosed a large brass-bound safe. Von Bork detached a small key from his watch chain, and after some considerable manipulation of the lock, he swung open the heavy door. "Look," he said, standing clear with a wave of his hand. The light shone vividly into the open safe, and the secrecy of the embassy gazed with absorbed interest at the rows of stuffed pigeonholes with which it was furnished. Each pigeonhole had a label, and his eyes, as he glanced along them, read a long series of titles such as Fords, Harbor Defenses, Aeroplanes, Ireland, Egypt, Portsmouth Forts, the Channel, Rosyth, and a score of others. Each compartment was bristling with papers and plans. "Colossal," said the secretary, putting down his cigar as he softly clapped his fat hands. "In all 4 years, Baron, not such a bad show for the hard-drinking, hard-riding country squire. And the gem of my collection is coming, and there is all the setting and getting ready for." He pointed to a small space over "Naval Signals" was printed. "But you have a good dossier there already." "Out of date and waste paper. The Admiralty in some way got the alarm, and every code has been changed. It was a blow, Baron. The worst setback in my whole campaign. But thanks to my checkbook and a good aliment, all will be well tonight." The Baron looked at his watch and gave a guttural exclamation of disappointment. "Well, I can really wait no longer. You can imagine that things are moving at present in Carlton Terrace, and that we have all to be at our posts. I had hoped to be able to bring news of your greatest coup. Did Altamont name no hour?" Von Bork pushed over a telegram. "Will come without fail tonight, and bring you sparkling plugs. Altamont." Sparkling plugs, eh? See, he poses as a motor expert, and I keep a full garage. In our code, everything likely to come up is named after some spare part. If he talks about a radiator, it is a battleship. Of an oil pump, a cruiser, and so on. Spark plugs are naval signals. "From Portsmouth at midday," said the secretary, examining the superscription. "By the way, what do you give him?" £500 for his particular job. Of course, he has a salary as well." The greedy rogue. They are useful, these traitors, but I grudge them their blood money. "I grudge Altamont nothing. He's a wonderful worker, and if I pay him well, at least he delivers the goods, to use his own phrase. Besides, he is not a traitor. I assure you that our most pan-Germanic junker is sucking dove in his feelings towards England, as compared to a real bitter Irish-American." "Oh, an Irish-American?" "If you heard him talk, you would not doubt it. Sometimes I assure you that I can hardly understand him. He seems to have declared war on the King's English as well as on the English King. Must you really go? He may be here any moment." "No, I'm sorry, but I am already overstayed my time. We shall expect you early tomorrow, and when you get that signal book through the little door of the Duke of York steps, you can put a triumphant fin on your record in England. What, today?" He indicated a heavy, sealed, dust-covered bottle, which stood with two high glasses upon the salver. "May I offer you a glass before your journey?" "No, thanks, but it looks like revelry." "Altamont has a taste in some wines. He took a fancy to my Tokay. He's a touchy fellow and needs humoring in small things. I have to study him, I assure you." They had strolled out on the terrace again, and along it on the further end, where at a touch from the Baron's chauffeur the great car shivered and shuckled. "Those are the lights of Harwich, I suppose," said the secretary, pulling on his dust coat. "How still and peaceful it all seems. There may be other lights within the week, and the English coast a less tranquil place. The heavens, too, may not be quite so peaceful if all the good Zeppelin promises us comes true. By the way, who is that?" Only one window showed a light behind them. In it there stood a lamp, and beside it, seated at a table, was a dear old ruddy-faced woman with a country cap. She was bending over knitting and stooping occasionally to stroke a large black cat upon the stool beside her. "Oh, that is Martha, the only servant I have left." The secretary chuckled. "She might almost personify Britannia," said he, with her complete self-absorption and general air of comfortable sonance. "Well, au revoir, Von Bork." With a final wave of his hand, he sprang into the car, and a moment later the two golden cones from the headlights shot forward in the darkness. The secretary lay back in the cushions of his luxurious limousine, with his thoughts so full of impending European tragedy that he hardly observed that his car swung round the village street and nearly passed over a little Ford coming in the opposite direction. Von Bork walked slowly back to the study when the last gleams of the motor lamps had faded in the distance. As he passed, he observed that his old housekeeper had put out the lamp and retired. It was a new experience for him, the silence and darkness of his widespread house, for his family and household had been a large one. It was a small relief to him, however, to think that they were all in safety, and that, but for the old one woman who had lingered in the kitchen, he had the whole place to himself. There was a good deal of tidying up to do inside his study, and he set himself to it, until his keen, handsome face was flushed with the heat of the burning papers. A leather valise stood beside him at the table, and into this he began to pack very neatly and systematically the precious contents of his safe. He had hardly got started with the work, however, when his quick ears caught the sound of a distant car. Instantly he gave an exclamation of satisfaction, strapped up the valise, shut the safe, locked it, and hurried out on the terrace. He was just in time to see the lights of the small car come to a halt at the gate. The passenger sprang out of it and advanced swiftly towards him, while the chauffeur, a heavily built elderly man with a grey moustache, settled down, who one resigns himself to a long vigil. "Well," asked Von Bork eagerly, running forward to meet our visitor. The answer of the man waved a small brown paper parcel triumphantly over his head. "You can give me the glad hand tonight, mister," he cried. "I'll bring you home the bacon at last." "The signals? The same as I said in my cable, every last one of them. Semaphore, lamp code, Marconi, a copy, mind you, not the original. And that was too dangerous. But it's real goods, and you can lay a hand on that." He slapped the German on the shoulder with a rough familiarity from which the other winced. "Come in," he said. "I'm all alone in the house. I was only waiting for this. Of course, a copy is better than the original. If the original were missing, they could change the whole thing. You think it's safe about the copy?" The Irish-American had entered the study and stretched his long limbs on the armchair. He was a tall, gaunt man of 60, with clear-cut features and a small goatee beard which gave him the general resemblance of the caricatures of Uncle Sam. A half-smoked, sodden cigar hung from the corner of his mouth, and as he sat down he struck a match and relit it. "Making ready for the move?" he asked as he looked around him. "Say, mister," he added, as his eyes fell upon the safe from which the curtains were now removed. "You don't tell me to keep the papers in that?" "Why not? Gosh, in a wide-open contraption like that? And they reckon you to be some spy. Why, a Yankee crook would be into that with a can opener. If I'd known any better, a letter of mine was going to lie loose like a thing like that, I would have been a mug to write you at all. It would puzzle my cook to force a safe, Von Bork answered. You won't cut the metal with any tool. But the lock. No, it's a double combination lock. You know what that is. Search me, said the American. Well, you need a word as well as a set of figures before you can get the lock to work. He rose and showed a double radiating disc round the keyhole. The outer one is for letters, the inner one is for figures. Well, that is fine. So it's not quite as simple as you thought. It was 4 years ago that I had it made. And what do you think I chose word and figures? It's beyond me. Well, I chose August for the word and 1914 for the figures. And here we are. The American's face showed his surprise and admiration. Why, that was smart. I had it down to a fine thing. Yes, a few of us even then could guess the date. There it is, and I'm shutting down tomorrow morning. Well, I guess you'll fix me up also then. I'm not staying for this Goddard country all on my lonesome. In a week or less, and from what I see, John Bull will be on his hind legs and fair ramping. I'd rather watch him from over the water. But you're an American citizen. So was Jack James an American citizen, and he's doing time in Portland all the same. It cuts no ice with the British copper to tell him you're an American citizen. It's British law over here, says he. By the way, mister, talking of Jack James, it seems to me that you don't do much to cover your men. What do you mean? Van Borg asked abruptly. Well, you are the employer, ain't you? It's up to you to see that they don't fall down. But they do fall down, and when do you ever pick them up? There's James. It was James's own fault. You know that yourself. He was too self-willed for the job. James was a bonehead, I give you that. Then there was Hollis. The man was mad. Well, he went a bit woozy towards the end. That's enough to make a man bug out if he used to play a part of morning, night, and day with 100 guys all ready to set the coppers wise to him. But you know there's Steiner. Van Bork started violently. His ruddy face turned a shade paler. What about Steiner? Well, they've got him now, that's all. They raided his store last night, and he and his papers are all in Portsmouth Gaol. He'll go off, and he, poor devil, will have to stand the racket, and only lucky if he gets off with his life. That's why I want to get over the water as soon as I can. Von Bork was a strong, self-contained man, but it was easy to see that the news had shaken him. How could they have got on to Steiner? He muttered. What's the worst blown at? Well, you nearly had worse off, for I believe they're not far from me. Don't you say that. Sure thing. My landlady over Fratton Way had some inquiries, and when I heard of it, I guessed it was time for me to hustle. But what I want to know is, mister, how the coppers know these things. Steiner is the 5th man you've lost since I signed on with you, and I know the name of the 6th if I don't get a move on. How do you explain it? Ain't you ashamed of seeing your men go down like this? Von Bork flushed crimson. How dare you speak to me in such a way? I don't dare things, mister. I wouldn't be in your service. But I'll set you straight what is on my mind. I heard that you, with German politicians, when an agent has done his work, you're not so sorry to see him put away. Bork sprang to his feet. Do you dare to suggest that I have given away my own agents? I don't stand for that, mister, but there's a stool pigeon across somewhere, and it's up to you to find out where it is. Anyhow, I'm taking no more chances. It's me for Little Holland, and the sooner the better. Von Bork had mastered his anger. We've been allies too long to quarrel now at the very hour of victory, said he. You've done splendid work and taken risks, and I can't forget it. By all means go to Holland, and you can get a boat for Rotterdam to New York. No other time will be safe for a week from now. I'll take that book and package it with the rest. The American held a small parcel in his hand, but made no motion to give it up. What about the dough? He asked. The what? The boodle, the reward, the £500. The gunner turned damn nasty at the last, and I had to square with him an extra $100, or it would be too nitpicky for me and you. Nothing doing, he says. Meant it too, but the last 100 did it. It cost me £200 from first to last, so it is likely I'll give it up without getting my wad. Van Bork smiled with some bitterness. You don't seem to have a very high opinion of my honor, he said. You want the money before you give me the book? Well, mister, it is a business proposition. All right, have your way. He sat down at the table and scribbled a check, which he tore from the book, but he refrained from handing it to his companion. After all, since we're on such terms, Mr. Alamont, he said, I don't see why I should trust you any more than you trust me. Do you understand? He added, looking back over his shoulder at the American. There's a check upon the table. I claim the right to examine the part. It is a good wine, Holmes. A remarkable wine, Watson. Our friend upon the sofa has assured me that it's from Franz Joseph's special cellar of the Sherlock Holmes Palace. Might I trouble you to open the window? The chloroform vapor does not help the palate. The safe was ajar, and Holmes, standing in front of it, was removing dossier after dossier, swiftly examining each and then packing it neatly in von Bork's valise. The German lay upon the sofa, sleeping stereously, with a strap round his upper arms and another around his legs. We need not hurry ourselves, Watson. We are safe from interruption. Would you mind touching the bell? There is no one in the house except old Martha, who has played her part to admiration. I got to the situation here when I first took the matter up. Ah, Martha, you will be glad to hear all is well. The pleasant old lady had appeared in the doorway. She curtsied with a smile to Mr. Holmes, but glanced up with some apprehension at the figure upon the sofa. It's all right, Martha. He has not been hurt at all. I'm glad of that, Mr. Holmes. According to his lights, he has been a kind master, and he wanted me to go with his wife to Germany yesterday, but that would hardly have suited our plans, would it, sir? No, indeed, Martha. So long as you were here, I was easy in mind. I waited some time for your signal tonight. It was the secretary, sir. I know. His car passed ours. I thought he would never go. I knew that it would not suit your plans, sir, to find him here. No, indeed. Well, it was only meant that we waited half an hour or so until I saw your lamp go out, and knew that the coast was clear. You can report to me tomorrow in London, Martha, at Claridge's Hotel. Very good, sir. I suppose you have everything ready to leave? Yes, sir. He posted 7 letters today. I have the addresses as usual. Very good, Martha. I will look to you tomorrow, then. Good night. These papers, he continued as the old lady vanished, are not of very great importance for information. The general they represent has been sent long off to the German government. These are the originals, which could not safely be got out of the country. Then they are of no use to us. I should go so far to say that, Watson. They will at least show our people what is known and what is not. I may say that a good many of these papers have come through me, and I may not need to add thoroughly unworthy. It would brighten my declining years to see a German cruiser navigating Solent according to the minefield plans which I have finished. But you, Watson, he stopped his work and took his old friend by the shoulders. I've hardly seen you in the light yet. How many years have I used you? Look at the blithe boy as ever. I feel as 20 years younger, Holmes. I've seldom felt that how happy as I got your wire asking me to meet you at Harwich with the car. But you, Holmes, you've changed very little, save for your horrible goatee. These are the sacrifices one makes for their country, Watson, said Holmes, pulled a little chuffed. Tomorrow it will be a dreadful memory. With my haircut and a few other superficial changes, I shall no doubt reappear as Claridge's tomorrow as I was before this American stunt. I beg your pardon, Watson. My well of English seems to be permanently defiled, before this American job came my way. But you retired, Holmes. We heard you were living as a life of a hermit among your bees and your books in a small farm upon the South Downs. Exactly, Watson. Here's the fruit of my leisure days. My magnum opus of my later years. He picked up the volume from the table and read the title aloud. Practical Handbook of Bee Culture, with some observations upon the surrogation of the queen. Alone I did it. Behold the fruit of the pensive nights and laborious days when I watched the little working gangs and once watched the criminal world of London. But how did you get to work again? I have often marveled at it myself. The foreign minister alone I could not have withstood, but when the premier also deigned to visit my humble roof. The fact is, Watson, that this gentleman upon the sofa was a bit too good of our people. He was in class by himself. Things were going wrong, and no one could understand why they were going wrong. Agents were suspected or even caught, but there was evidence of some strong and secret central force. It was absolutely necessary to expose it. A strong pressure was brought upon me to look into the matter. It has cost me 2 years, Watson, and they have not been devoid of excitement. When I say that I started a pilgrimage in Chicago, graduated as an Irish secret society in Buffalo, and gave serious trouble to a constabulary in Skidderbean, and eventually caught the eye of a subordinate agent of Von Bork, who recommended me as a likely man, you'll realize that the matter was complex. And since I have been honored by his confidence, which was not prevented most of his plans going subtly wrong and 5 of his best agents being in prison, I watched them, Watson, and I picked them as they ripened. Well, sir, I hope that you are none the worse. The last remark was addressed to Von Bork himself, who was, after much gasping and blinking, had lain quietly listening to Holmes's statements. He broke out now into a furious stream of German invective, and the face convulsed with passion. Holmes continued his swift investigation of documents, while his prisoner cursed and swore. Although unmusical, German is one of the most expressive of all languages, he observed when Bork had stopped from pure exaltation. Hello, hello, he added, as he looked hard at the corner of the tracing before putting it in a box. This should put another bird in a cage. I had no idea that the paymaster was such a rascal, though I have long had an eye upon him. Master Van Bork, you have done a great deal for answering. The prisoner had raised himself with some difficulty upon the sofa and was staring with a strange mixture of amazement and hatred at his captor. I shall get level with you, Altamont, he said, speaking with slow deliberation. If it takes all my life, I shall get level with you. Ah, the sweet old song, said Holmes. How often I have heard it in days gone by. It was my favourite ditty of the late lamented Professor Moriarty. Colonel Sebastian Morin has also been known to warble it, and yet I live and keep bees upon South Downs. Curse you, double traitor! Cried the German, straining against his bonds and glaring murder with his furious eyes. No, no, it is not as bad as that, said Holmes, smiling. As my speech surely shows you, Mr. Altamont of Chicago had no existence. In fact, I used him, and he is gone. Then who are you? It is really immaterial who I am, but since the matter seems to interest you, Mr. Von Bork, I may say that this is not my first acquaintance with members of your family. I have done a good deal of business in Germany in the past, and my name is probably familiar to you. I wish to know it, said the Russian primly. It was I who brought the separation between Irene Adler and the late King of Bohemia, when your cousin Heinrich was the imperial envoy. It was I who saved from murder by the nihilist Klopman Count von und zu Grafense, who was your mother's elder brother. It was I... Von Bork sat up in amazement. There is only one man, he cried. Exactly, said Holmes. Von Bork groaned and sank back on the sofa. And most of the information came through you, he cried. What was it worth? What have I done? Is it the ruin of my career? It is certainly a little untrustworthy, said Holmes. It will require some checking, and you have little time to check it. Your admiral may find the new guns rather larger than he expects, and the cruisers perhaps a trifle faster. Von Bork clutched at his own throat in despair. They will do no good in other points of detail, which, no doubt, will come to light in time. But you have one quality which is very rare in German, Mr. von Bork. You are a sportsman, and you bear me no ill will when you realize that you, who have outwitted so many other people, have at least been outwitted yourself. After all, you have done your best with your country, and I have done my best for mine, and what could be more natural? Besides, he added, not unkindly, as he laid his hand upon the shoulder of the prostrate man, it is better to fall before some more ignoble foe. These papers are now ready, Watson. If you will help me with our prisoner, I think that we may get started for London at once. It was no easy task to move Von Bork, for he was a strong and desperate man. Finally, holding either arm, the two friends walked him very slowly down the garden walk, which he had trod with such proud confidence when he received the congratulations of the famous diplomatist only a few hours before. After a short final struggle, he was hoisted, still bound hand and foot, into the spare seat of the little car. His precious valise was wedged in beside him. I trust that you are comfortable as circumstances permit, said Holmes when the final arrangements were made. Should I be guilty of a liberty if I lit a cigar and placed it between your lips? But all amenities were wasted upon the angry German. I suppose you realize, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, said he, that if your government bears out, that your treatment comes as an act of war. What about your government and all its treatment? Said Holmes, tapping the valise. You are a private individual. You are not warrant for my arrest. The whole proceeding is absolutely legal and outrageous. Absolutely, said Holmes. Kidnapping is a German subject. And stealing his private papers? Well, you realize your position. You and your accomplice here. If I were to shout out for help, we will pass through the village. My dear sir, if you did anything so foolish, you would probably enlarge the too limited titles of our village inns by giving us the darling Prussian as a signpost. The Englishman is a patient creature, but at present his temper is so little inflamed that it would not well to try him too far. Now, Mr. von Bork, you will go with us in the quiet, sensible fashion to Scotland Yard. Once you can send for your friend Baron von Herling, and see if even now you may not fill that place which he has reserved for you in the ambassadorial suite. As for you, Watson, are you joining up with your old service? I understand. So London won't be out of your way. Stand with me here upon the terrace if you may be a little quiet, that we may talk things over. The two friends chatted in intimate converse for a few minutes, recalling once again the days of the past, whilst the prisoner vainly wriggled to undo his bonds that held him. As they turned to the car, Holmes pointed at the little moonlight sea and shook a thoughtful head. That's the east wind coming, Watson. I think not, Holmes. It is very warm. Good old Watson. You're the one fixed point in a changing age. There's an east wind coming all the same. Such a wind never blew on England yet. It will be bitter and cold, Watson, and a good many of us may wither before the blast. But it's God's own wind nonetheless, and a cleaner, better, stronger land will lie in the sunshine when the storm has cleared. Start her up, Watson, for it's time that we're on our way. I have a cheque for £500, which should be cashed early, for the drawer is quite capable of stopping it. If he can. All right, then. And that ends The Last Bow. A short story, and of course, my stream was interrupted in the middle of it. So I will be posting the recording on YouTube tomorrow. There's a wild Marowak in the chat. And now, I do like the fact that the issue of Irene Sadler was in the very first story and mentioned again in the very last. which leads into the movie I was going to do. I kind of got it queued up. A nice little black and white drama that I had to check multiple times to make sure that it was public domain because I don't want to get busted for that kind of thing. I'm not even on this thing. Did I change that? How am I not in the scene? That's hilarious. Here we go. I did not know I was omitted from the scene. But Matsu, can you say even better suggestion for the final movie to be the first story? And I did make a point that Study in Scarlet was the first Sherlock Holmes story I read on the stream. And now, it'll be the last movie of Tales of T20B. So, let me get on here and dim the lights. And we will get into the movie, shall we? I hope you'll enjoy it. Hope you can hear the music all right. It's a little static anyway.
Duck. Hey, Jenny, you are the end. I can't open it. Right now. Oh, blimey. All his nibs.
Mr. Partridge. Hey, Mr. Partridge.
Now what's the trouble?
Can't open the blinking door.
Come out. You hear me? This is Victoria Station. Honey.
Some drunk, sleeping it off.
Some just traveling first class.
Come on, Wade.
Jim, let's have your ladder.
Yes, sir.
Open that window.
Right. I can't budge it, Mr. Partridge.
That is the word. You'll have to smash it then.
What? Oh! Mr. Partridge, there's... Oh, there's...
Run for help! Fetch the police! Don't stand there gaping!
This must be the place.
Yes.
You'll have to wait here.
But I'm not going to let you go in a place like this alone.
You must really. I'll be all right.
This meeting is now called to order. The unfortunate death in a train of one of our members, Mr. James Murphy, who departed this life by his own act while of unsound mind, has necessitated this meeting.
That's what you say, Mr. Mayhew. But how do you know?
A verdict of death by suicide was returned tonight. This is the second occasion that we have been brought together by the mishaps to our members. The first being the passing away by natural causes of the late Colonel Forrester, whose charming daughter so gracefully honors us with her presence here tonight. It is agreed in the pact drawn up and formally attested to by its founders that should the Grim Reaper overtake one or more, the interests of the deceased in the society will be divided equally among the surviving members. It is also provided for in the pact that Miss Forrester becomes a participating member. Consequently, the interests of the late James Murphy will be divided equally among the seven of us. I move that my fee for the necessary legal representation, funeral expenses, and a modest urn for the ashes be defrayed by our organization. I understand from the widow that he expressed a preference for cremation.
I second that.
All those in favor will please signify by raising their hands. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Baker. Mr. Deering. Mr. Pike. Yet? Good. Has any provision been made for the widow? None.
I presume that we could stretch a point in her favor.
Emphatically no. Things are complicated enough as they are.
Why did he want to kill himself?
Have you ever met his wife?
No.
No? Well, I have. A pest if there ever was one. He can attribute his death solely to the general deficiencies of one Annabelle Mary Murphy. What would you deduce from this?
Obviously, an attempt to convey secret information.
Could you decipher it?
I could not, nor could you.
Would you like to bet?
Certainly.
How much?
Shilling.
My time is too valuable. The answer will be found in a large book because the numbers are large. I'd suggest the Bible. A client, Watson. Where? The widow standing under the street lamp.
A widow? Would you like to bet on that?
Of course.
Well, I'm not going down the street to ask her.
Ah.
Won't be necessary. She's made up her mind.
So you deduce at a distance, eh?
Not in this case. I recognized her features. She's a Mrs. Murphy. Her husband was murdered 3 days ago.
You mean the man that was found dead in a train?
Exactly. Come in.
Mrs. Murphy to see you, sir.
Mr. Holmes, I'm in such a mess. Such a mess. My husband up and died without leaving me as much as a threepenny bit. It's a crying shame, Mr. Holmes. That's what it is.
Sit down and try to compose yourself.
Cut off without a farthing by an ungrateful good-for-nothing. Me, at my time of life. No dirty dog had a better wife. I've waited on him hand to mouth. Stood by his side morning, noon and night. And what does the stinker do? He ups and kills himself and leaves his money to a trust. And Mr. Merridew, yes. And there's another stinker if I never saw another. Won't even let me have a sixpence. He won't even let me have a halfpenny, Mr. Holmes.
Thaddeus Merridew, the lawyer?
Yes, the thieving hound, the dirty rat.
One moment. You were married how long?
5 blessed long years.
Previous to your marriage, your husband served in the army.
You knew him?
Of it. He got his discharge in China.
Yes, that's right.
Then you married.
Yes, and I gave up everything, Mr. Holmes. You asked the proprietor of the Black Sow. He'll tell you. It was me that made that pub what it was.
And your husband had money.
Barrels of it. And when he wanted more, he used to come up to London and get it. It was that took him to London when he killed himself.
How do you know?
Well, Jim comes into my room. I was in bed with a piece of cucumber rind round my head, trying to cure an headache. He had a letter in his hand. See here, pig, he said. That was his pet name for me when he was drunk. I'm going up to London.
Did you read the contents of the letter?
Oh, it wasn't no letter. It was just a piece of doggerel.
Watson, make a note of Mrs. Murphy's address.
232 King's Cross Road. Then you'll undertake me, Mr. Holmes.
I'll take up your case.
Mind you, it'll have to be for love.
Love?
For Nick. I've heard as how you like working for nothing.
My interest is to bring the criminal to justice.
Oh, never mind about justice. Never mind about the crime. All I want is my husband's lawful money. And I want you to slap that thieving lawyer's face right across between his greasy fat chops. Good night, Mr. Holmes. I'll be seeing you, and thank you kindly.
Good night, Miss Murphy. Deep water, Watson.
She needs some shady lawyer, not you.
Think so?
I'm amazed that you're wasting your energies on such a morbid trifle. Who is this Merridew?
London's most dangerous crook. The king of blackmailers. A gliding, slithy, venomous snake. Once in his power, he'll squeeze and squeeze until he's drained his victims dry. More than once I've had my net around him, but so far he's managed to wriggle his way out. But the time has come, Watson. The time has come for Mr. Thaddeus Merridew.
And now, Miss Forrester and gentlemen, this concludes the meeting. I would like to have a word with you alone. I sincerely trust no further accidents will happen to occasion another meeting. You never can tell.
Are you going my way?
Which way do you go?
I go the other. That leads to a dead end.
That's the way I go.
Good night, then.
Good night. You must never mention anything that transpired at this meeting tonight, or even that this meeting was held. I saw a young man standing on the corner as I came in.
Yes, my fiancé. He brought me here and is waiting for me.
Oh. Then you're thinking of being married?
Yes.
I wouldn't if I were you. That is, at least until you've consulted me.
But why?
I can't explain. In a short time, this society will no longer exist. Until its affairs are winded up, it would be most unwise for you to marry. Your father would not have wished it.
What had my father to do with these people?
Didn't he ever tell you?
No.
Then I must respect his silence. Remember, not a word to a living soul.
He's after me. He's after me.
Captain Pike.
Oh! Oh!
Dead, shot through the heart. You wait here. What is it? What's happened? Are you hurt?
Someone. Look. It disappeared. What does it mean?
The murderer must have had an accomplice and removed the body.
We must call the police.
No, the police will be here soon enough. We mustn't become involved.
But it's murder.
As you respect your father's memory, you must preserve a strict silence. Not a word. Come.
The body was pulled out of the Thames at 5 a.m. in the Limehouse district. The autopsy shows that death was caused by a bullet through the heart. The features, as you see, are unrecognizable, caused possibly by the battering of the head against the wall where the body was found. The widow identified the body by means of that ring.
Ah. A very rare and very beautiful ring, Lestrade.
There isn't the slightest doubt the deceased is Captain Pike. The clothes were identified, initials on the collar and on the shirt. Further identifications are contained in these letters that were found in the clothing.
Where is the widow?
We asked her to wait. She's in the adjoining room.
Mrs. Pike?
Yes. You are...
My name is Sherlock Holmes. When did you last see your husband alive?
We dined together last night at the Savoy Grill. He left me shortly after 9 o'clock. I never saw him again.
You are staying?
At the Savoy.
You've been in London how long?
About a week.
And you live where?
At the Grange Shoeburyness.
When your husband left you, did he inform you where he was going?
No, but I fancied it was on a matter of business. He was a man very precise in his habits. When midnight came, and there was no sign of him, I became rather alarmed.
Midnight would be a late hour for him.
Very. As the time went on, I became more and more worried. At last I informed the police. An hour ago, I received a message to come here, where I identified the body of my poor husband.
By the ring?
Yes.
Did he always wear a ring?
That one, yes. I gave it to him when we were married.
That would be...
About 6 years ago in China. It is an heirloom belonging to my family and has been handed down through generations.
I see. Permit me to express my sympathy for your great loss.
Thank you. Is that all?
By the way, should it become necessary, shall I communicate with you at the Grange or the Savoy?
Through my lawyer.
His name?
Mr. Thaddeus Merridew. Good morning, Mr. Holmes.
Well, what do you make of it?
Murder, unquestionably.
Is that all?
That's all I have to say.
What do you think?
I think that the lady is a liar.
helping me!
Unlock the desk.
The papers are full of the Pike murder mystery. It seemed to me particularly senseless and futile. There was no motive. No motive. Peer deep down in the black heart of Thaddeus Merridew and you'll find a motive.
You don't mean to suggest that he had anything to do with it, do you?
I suggest nothing. Come in.
Inspector is strange to see you, sir.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
What's the matter? You look worried.
Worried I'm up to my neck.
Again?
Before I can begin to finish one case, I'm plunged into another.
That's the penalty of being smart. You came to see me professionally.
Well, unofficially.
I see. Heads you win, tails I lose.
There's been a bad business during the night. An old gentleman. You'll find it a bit of a puzzler.
You mean you found it a bit of a puzzler?
We've left everything in status quo, hoping you'll favor us with an opinion.
Dead? Murder?
Suicide.
Come, Watson. Game is afoot.
He was well known as a stamp collector.
Very interesting.
What is it, Holmes?
That leads out to the garden, seldom used to judge by the rusty hinges.
Good morning, sir.
You can see that I've left everything untouched.
If a herd of buffaloes had passed along, it couldn't be a greater mess.
You can take a smoke.
Thank you, sir.
What do you think?
There's been murder done. And the murderer was a man. He was in the prime of life, 6 feet in height, has small feet, wears square-toed boots, limps slightly on the left foot, and smokes Trichinopoly cigars.
If it was murder, how was it committed?
The assassin was in the house before his victim arrived. He hid in the recess behind the window. While there, he smoked a cigar. He fired a shot which hit the victim on the back of the head and then dragged the body to where you found it. He left and returned somewhere later to fire a second shot, this time through the mouth. You'll find the mark of a boot clearly imprinted on the congealed blood.
What was his object?
To obliterate the effect of the first, hoping by so doing to transfer the crime from that of murder to one of suicide. Bullet number 1 you will find in the wall on the farther side of the room. The other will be found embedded in the body of the murdered man. Come, Watson. We mustn't keep Mr. Merridew waiting. Mr. Holmes is still waiting, sir.
How long has it been now?
Fully 2 hours, sir.
That's as it should be. You may show him in now.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Holmes, this is indeed a pleasure. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but I had to digest my lunch. This is my friend and partner, Dr. Watson. How do you do? Glass of port, gentlemen?
Thank you, no.
Cigar?
Thank you.
Be seated, gentlemen.
I represent Annabelle Mary Murphy.
Charming lady.
I'm empowered to act on her behalf.
Congratulations.
As you are doubtless aware, her husband came to a premature and sudden end.
Dear, dear.
My client is under an impression that certain monies belonging to the deceased are being unlawfully withheld from her.
By whom?
By you.
And you believe this delightful lady?
I'm paid to find out. An angry woman is hard to pacify. So I thought that an amicable discussion with you would put me...
I always love how Holmes does that. Checking her out, just like Watson. When drinking and driving wasn't a bad thing. Barging in. Excuse me. I'm sure they still made houses as well. $221A. Now, there's superstitions in Ireland that 3 knocks like that will signify death. Yay! Okay, well. I'm gonna turn off my filter. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming in for the last of the Sherlock Holmes streams. I guess we should try to find someone to raid now. Let's see who else is on. Sophia's still going? Yes, Sophia's still going. And Dusk is on. I don't see any of the other readers going right now. So let's go ahead and raid Sophia. She's part 3 of her Gulliver's Travel streams. So let's go see her. Do the message for followers and the one for subscribers. You can, I believe, unlock that emote if you want to. But let's go check on Sophia and see what in the Lilliputian world is going on. Have a good night, everyone, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow night for Fairy Tales.